Yeah, hi everybody. Welcome back. I hope you're doing well out there in YouTube land. Plenty of rain last night, about 50 mils of rain. We were bone dry. We haven't had rain anywhere for a long time. My little cat Chloe has gone missing. She's terrified of thunder. She didn't come in for dinner last night. Haven't been able to find her all day, so I'm hoping that she'll turn up tonight. Anyway, last episode we wound up, we'd been to Zanzibar, Tanzania, been down the coast a little bit, told you a bit about what I saw in Tanzania and Zanzibar. I'd been booked to fly down to Harare in Zimbabwe, and I'd stopped off in Kenya. I probably stayed longer than I was entitled to, but somehow or another I sorted it all out and I flew into Harare. Now I haven't gone through the diary yet. We can do that and we will, but a few things to clarify and a few thoughts. So I was on my way to see my dad. You know, money was starting to get a little bit tight. I probably had $1,000 left at that stage. And arriving and going and staying with Dad would have, saved that money. I never really had to pay much when I was with Dad. He always called the local currencies Mickey Mouse money or Disney money. So I never really, he sort of bought stuff and all that. Not that there was a lot of things to buy when I went to see him, but some of you may wonder how my dad ended up living in Zimbabwe. So it goes back to, and there's episodes on all of this, but in 1971 Dad took a job in South Africa and we went over on the ship. I came back to Australia in about 76. Mum had been killed in a car accident in 71. And Dad found his bachelor feet. He got the opportunity to be a bachelor again, and he never really liked South Africa. South Africa was very oppressive with its apartheid laws, and he liked the African ladies. So, and there is an episode on this as well. We went on a holiday up to Rhodesia in, I think it was about 1974. And stayed with one of Dad's friends, one of his chess buddies from the chess club, a German guy called Alf. And I think that's planted the seed in Dad's head about Rhodesia. It was more British, and the segregation laws were a lot less stringent than in South Africa or Brakpan where we lived. So when I came back to Australia here in about 76, he moved up to Bulawayo, and he formed a group of friends. They were mostly single white guys from all around the world really, but mainly English and Scottish, and a couple of local Rhodesians. And they all had sort of African girlfriends, and they'd go out every weekend. They'd go and have Chinese food, or there'd be a long table of them with their African girlfriends, and drinking and smoking, and maybe off to the disco at the Holiday Inn. The weekends might involve horse racing. Bulawayo was a great town. It was the height of the Rhodesian Bush War, so they were desperate for white people. There were lots of jobs going, and it was an uncertain time. A lot of white people were leaving Rhodesia, but Dad, being who he was, he went the other way. He immigrated into Rhodesia. Anyway, he ended up living in a place called Hwange, and that's up near Victoria Falls. Now I had gone and seen him there in 1983 when I was with my mate Tom. It's the first time I went back to Africa, and I fell in love with Hwange. The number one club, the swimming pool, the golf club, the bowls club, the cricket club, the lifestyle, this small community of white people that were still living the life. They had social cricket games going, they had a competition running. There was a big power station being built, a big coal-fired power station, huge funnels, and there might be a section of the furnaces needing to be built. They were huge funnels, and it might be they bring in some. I remember when I was there one time, there were Welsh. There was about 100 Welsh tradesmen came into town to build a certain section of this power station, and they'd fill up the number one club at night. Singing Welsh songs. There were Sri Lankans, Indians came in, Pakistanis. They joined in the local cricket comp. So it was a great lifestyle. And anyway, that's how he ended up living in Hwange, and that's where he would die. My dad passed away in 1993, so he never came back to live in Australia because, well, he was English by birth, but I think he always considered himself as a man of the world. So that's just to clarify how my dad ended up living in Hwange, near the Hwange Game Reserve, which was a big part of my story. I absolutely love that place. So yeah, I'll just tell you a little bit what I remember, and then we'll go through the diary again. So I got down there to Harare. As I recall, I was on a one-way ticket. They didn't like that at all, but I was able to convince them that I was going to stay with my dad. I think they actually, at the customs at the airport, I think they actually rang the bakery where Dad worked to clarify that Dad had enough money to get me a ticket to go home and that I wasn't staying. It's just, you probably couldn't get away with it these days, but yeah, they let me go. I think I got a train from Harare to Bulawayo. I don't even think I spent a night in Harare. I've never really been to Harare, I don't know it. I've only ever passed through it. And once I got to Bulawayo, I would have got the train up to Hwange, or maybe I got a lift. I had met Dad's friends in Bulawayo. He'd taken us down, Tom and I, to Bulawayo. We met up with a character called Ray. He's a fantastic guy. One of Dad's friends, a little guy who worked in the construction industry. I don't know, he's from the north of England or something. So maybe I caught up with them when I was in Bulawayo. Then I got the train up probably, or the bus, up to Hwange, and I remember sort of walking across to the bakery, and maybe that was the time an African had to show me how to find the bakery, and walking in on Dad and sitting in his office, and it had been a few years since I'd seen him. It was always fantastic feelings seeing my dad. I really loved Dad. But when I was there that time, yeah, I got to know some of the locals. There were guys my age, in particular a guy called Tony Murdoch-Eaton. Now, he worked for the colliery. The reason that Hwange was there was because of the coal mine, the colliery, which must have reminded Dad of growing up in Doncaster in Yorkshire, coal mining towns. Yeah, and Tony was about my age, so they were having some sort of musical function. Like it was, I think it was the Lions Club. They were putting on this show, like a cabaret. It was an outdoor show, and Tony learned that I played guitar. I play a little guitar, a bit. I probably thought I was better than I was, but I could play enough too. And he played drums, and his girlfriend or his wife was this good-looking English girl that played flute. And so they wrote me in to perform at this Lions performance, and I think it's certainly mentioned in here. So that's how I got friendly with Tony. Now, he smoked a lot of dope. The dope over there was fantastic, real strong, real good, and plentiful, and dirt cheap. So I was always going over to Tony's to rehearse for these songs we were going to do. One of the songs I remember we did was We Are the World, and each of us had a particular line to sing like they do in that song, We Are the World. I did, I got a little solo spot, and I did the Goanna song, Solid Rock, with a bit of a speech I regret now, something about the Aboriginals and the treatment of the Aborigines by the white settlers. It didn't go down that well with the Rhodesians. I don't regret the sentiment, I regret the way I put it. Anyway, yes, I made a lot of close friends, or I made a lot of friends in Hwange of guys my age, and I hung out with them, which I hadn't done the first time I went to Hwange, and it was fantastic. They showed me all sorts of things. They took me to places you wouldn't get to go as a standard tourist. Lots of wildlife, game walks and stuff like that. And what was happening was that the Hwange cricket team was coming out to Australia, so they asked me if I could help them organise some places to stay when they were over here. I think they played a couple of games in Melbourne, then they flew across to Perth for another game. But I organised them to stay in Melbourne with some friends, and that was coming up. That was sort of a year after I left Hwange to come back to Australia. So yeah, that's memories on the top of my head. So we'll have a look here what we can find. I'm going to put my glasses on. Yeah, I mean, I don't remember going down to South Africa, but I did. Actually, now I do. I do remember. April. The 9th of April. So once again, I've left in October, Australia. So I've been gone about 6 months. Once again, I turn my back on this book and days fly by already. I'm laying in a cool room in Hwange, settled into the lifestyle of waking early, waiting for Dad at the club, swimming, drinking, sleeping. The flight from Nairobi was not too bad. We stopped in Malawi for a couple of hours with engine trouble, but got to Harare in one piece. Worse, I expected trouble from immigration and got it. No return ticket, so no entry. They got me to see some officials and I was expecting a big fight, but he was good about it. When I told him Dad was here, that tipped the scale in my favour, as I sort of remembered. So I came, in I came, got the bus to Harare, got the train sleeper to Bulawayo. There I was back in Bulawayo after quite an absence. I walked to look for Ray, that was Dad's friend. I couldn't find his house. Worse luck than a hell march back to town to Jackie's. But she also moved, so I ended up hitching to Hwange, I tried hitching to Hwange, but no luck. That girl Jackie was the little girl that I kissed her when we went up in 1974. She ended up being quite a big wig in the Zimbabwe railways. I don't know how I would have known where she was. I suppose I had addresses from when I'd been there in 83. Ended up getting the train economy class to Thompson's Junction. I drank chibuku. Chibuku is the African beers. It's sort of like runny yogurt, really. I slept under the seats and generally spoke shit to my African travelling friends. I arrived at 4:30 a.m, took a taxi to Cantor's, and there we were after such a long haul. Here at last. Now what happens? We'll see in a page or two. Okay. Thompson's Junction, they were all steam trains in those days. Thompson's Junction was just out of Hwange, and they had like a repair shop for the locomotives and all that there. We're now on to the 15th of the 4th, so what's that? Almost a week. Laying in bed at Ray and Becky's house. I've been awake since 2 a.m. and the thoughts are cartwheeling in my head. I'll tell you why later. So we must have gone down to see Ray and Becky. Becky was his girlfriend. He used to fight like cat and dog, those two. So we must have gone down to Hwange in Dad's car. The past few days in Hwange were very routine, except I went to the game park along with the Irish cricket team. It was quite good, a lot of beer and a braai afterwards. I fell asleep to wake and find the bus gone, but no problem. Pete Radloff took me home. On the Saturday night I got to go to the African cocktail bar, of which Dad is the only white member. I can't say I was very impressed. We went to the club and Gossip were playing. Yeah, so that was the thing, because I got to know these guys. I got taken to the game park, and sometimes, these guys would get drunk and they jump in a Land Rover. We'd go off the road, we'd go travelling across the bush, looking for animals. So yeah, I got to know all the locals because of playing cricket. That was the thing, the local cricket comp. I had on my pink singlet, so doubted I would get in, but these girls took a friend's shirt and Tyan lent it to me, and wham, I'm in. Not a bad band all night. Oh, I was coming out of the club one night and these girls were standing around. Of course, I wiggled my ass in a pose and one of them said, "Could I bite your ass?" I said yes, and she did. Does wonders for one's ego, as if I needed it. Yeah, inflated ego, but a low sense of self-esteem. Anyhow, I caught the bus down from Hwange yesterday. God, I hate travelling, so boring. Dad gave me $350, so of course I get to Bulawayo and head straight to the GPO phone section. So I'm still ringing home because I'm homesick. So I must have gone down on my own. It sounds like Dad gave me some money. I got the bus down and I probably stayed with Ray and Becky. I wanted to ring Paul as I felt I needed a bit of pepping, but she wasn't home, so I spoke to Debbie for a little while. Not an outstanding call. Then of course I think to die, that's the Greek lady, and my heart got weak. I rang work, spoke to Teen. So this is the railways. I'm ringing the railways where I used to work. I couldn't obviously ring Di's house because the parents wanted to kill me. She was nice and gave me her Di's home phone number. Shaking, I waited for the operator to connect us. The call was better than Uganda. She tried some, said we couldn't see each other, the family would kill, etc., etc., but she still loves me. That's the only heartening thing I got from it. So I've been awake all morning. Crazy plans are in my head. Oh, I'm still in love with this woman. Anyway, yeah, you get the idea. I'm rattled. I met Ray and Becky in the Waverley Hotel last night. Not too much changed. Ray was as nice to me as ever. When we got back, they had cooked stew for me, but Becky's nephews ate it all. Ray went berserk. So a big fight with Becky followed. Are things much the same as '83? Oh, Jack rang me. Good to hear the bastard. He was very apologetic about all my letters. Must have sank home. He's come back from the USA. Paul chasing. That was my neighbour in Gardenvale. Poor guy died of an alcoholic death not long after. But he was looking after my car when I was away. I don't know how he could have rung me, but there you go. Okay, we're up to Easter now, and we just passed Easter. So, end of the Easter weekend tonight, I will go back to Hwange by train. Amina is coming with me. So Amina was the African girlfriend that I had. That was kind of a half-sister to Priscilla, who was Dad's girlfriend. She was a lovely, lovely lady. So the weekend was not so special. I'm glad it's over, really. I spent a lot of it with Amina and basically just drank a lot with Ray at the Waverley. That must have been local. Oh, there was a club, I think, called the Waverley. Highlights were one night round at Isabel's. A group of us were drinking and listening to records. It was very pleasant to be with Amina and to remember old times. One day we went into town and walked around the lovely parks here, then went on to Francesca's. I took the girls for a drink, then onto the flat where Francesca cooked me a lovely meal. That was one of Amina's sisters. There was about 8 of these women. They're all like half sisters. We stayed at the flat for the night, then next morning had a divine breakfast. The sun was lovely, so I sat on the balcony and we bought some beer, and it was so nice sitting in the sun. There's your alcoholic fermenting there, sitting in the sun in the morning drinking beer. Last night we went to Peking, a Chinese restaurant. I shouted Ray, Becky and Amina. I had to wear Ray's pants and shirt. What a laugh. In a reasonable meal, then we went to Alabama where a jazz band played. I got the giggles quite badly, but a good night had. That was the highlights of an Easter weekend. Got to be better than last year's. Failed to see the ruins, but hope to come back in a fortnight. So by the end of April, how the days fly. We came back to Hwange, Amina and I travelling on the zoo again. I think I mean the back of the train, the third section of the train, where you just sat on these benches all night. There was no sleeping. Yeah, and it was full of Africans, so you know, they were all drinking chibuku. It was a lot of fun actually sitting with them, drinking chibuku. They were all curious, they were all very friendly. So no transport to town, so we sat till 6:30 a.m. for a bus. We went to the falls and stayed at the Zambezi, $56 a double. So we went up to the Vic Falls, obviously, Amina and I. The weekend was great. Falls are as spectacular as ever. A lot of water coming over now as flood water from Angola is here. Anyway, the spray was incredible, soaking us in seconds. We went to the falls on the Friday and Saturday. I ate on the Friday. I took Amina plus some beer into the Vic Falls game park. We drove into a family of elephant. All around us they roamed. I loved it, but Amina was very scared. That night we ate at the Zambezi. Saturday went shopping, then went to the falls. I dropped Amina off and went back to the park with more beer, but saw little. Night we went to the Vic Falls Hotel for a superb buffet meal. On to the Makaza Disco. Not impressed. I did clear a profit of $2 from the casino. Amina went to the Zambezi Disco, but I went swimming. Fell asleep, but swam again at 3 a.m. Wow. Sunday Amina went again to the falls, but I went up to the Vic Falls Hotel to have a beer. We went to the game drive 10 kilometres out of Vic Falls. For most of it there was little game, but at the platform we sat for more than an hour till at least 50 elephants came to drink and splash around. It was beyond doubt the most memorable time in Africa for me so far. Arrived home about 5:30 p.m. and took Amina and Priscilla to the Baobab for peri peri chicken. Yeah, that Baobab hotel overlooks Hwange. It's fantastic. A huge Baobab, obviously it's named after the peri peri chicken. I remember it used to come in a basket with chips. Some of the best peri peri chicken I've ever had. Fantastic. Yesterday I learnt Tommy's VW Bug. I lent Tommy's VW Bug and took it to the falls again to get a visa extension. Not too much trouble. I got a 3-month visa, so all I need is a ticket and I can go down to South Africa. So Tommy was Dad's housemate. Tommy worked on the railways. I'll put up a picture of Dad and his mates. They were great guys. Billy was a small guy. He was like a industrial chemist. Ended up drinking himself to death. He was drinking like surgical alcohol in the end. The guy really lost it, was living with Africans in huts. Tommy worked for the railways. He was a Scotsman, and Dad had put him up. Him and all his furniture were in this house of Dad's, and he had this little yellow Volkswagen, which I think you couldn't. You had to park on a hill. You had to go. You had to roll start the car. Yeah, he was a really nice guy. Here it says, couldn't start the bastard even with much pushing, so had to take it to the garage to be charged, the battery. The drive home was fun. Listening to Beatles on headphone, had this crazy idea for busking, me and partner wearing rubber, Paul and John masks and black Beatles suits. All over the beat alls, we were going to call ourselves, all Beatles songs. What I didn't take into account was who would be able to sing these songs. They're out of my range. The VW cut out again on arrival in Hwange, so had to walk back here to get Dad to tow it to start the bastard. I drank at the hockey club last night. Yeah, poor Dad, you know. But, yeah, he loved seeing me, I guess, but yeah, always needing help. So we're now into May. We're in Mashfingo now at 6:30 am, preparing to go back to Bulawayo. Arrived here on Thursday on an average African bus and walked 2 kilometres out to stay at the Flamboyant Motel. Had a lovely meal of bream, and an African guitarist swooned us with Italian, French, Spanish love songs. Yesterday I went to the ruins, still very impressive. Amina seemed impressed and I liked walking around in the heat, in the bush. Last night we moved down to the Chevron Hotel so we can be closer to the bus stop this morning. I expect Dad to be in Bulawayo this weekend, so I hope to meet him. So I must have taken Amina across to the the Zimbabwe ruins. Yeah, I hung out with her all the time. I don't know how I could have been missing people back here or women back here when I had Amina with me. She was such good company and so easygoing, you know. I did want to bring Amina out to Australia at one stage. We nearly did it, just for a long holiday, but they wouldn't let her get on the plane, but I had a ticket bought for her. Anyway, I went to the trade fair in Bulawayo. Last week took Ricky, Mandy, Natty, Sapiwe and Amina, a big family. It was quite nice, like little Natalie wanted to hold my hand all the way and little Mandy liked me to carry her. I let them all go on a ride and bought them a drink each. These some of them were Amina's kids. I don't know who the rest were, but yeah, they're all kids. What's that? 4 kids and Amina. I found the wildlife stand and booked a wildlife trail for May the 22nd, 23rd, 24th. $300. If I can get some others to go in on it with me, it will make it cheaper. Try some YMCAs. Bulawayo to find some travellers. Took the last of my dreads out yesterday. Yeah, so that was like this walk that you could do. I remember that trade fair because I ordered a pair of pants made out of suede with tassels and beads and a lace-up fly and all that. They were red suede. They never really worked out, but yeah, I ordered them and I picked them up. They weren't that great, but yeah, I organised this walking tour through the Hwange game park, 3 days, 2 nights, and I did find a guy. I went up to Victoria Falls, left some messages in the Backpackers Lodge for others to join me on this walk to bring the price down a bit, and the only person that was interested was this big tall German guy. He joined myself and this Austrian or German guy. So mid-May we're back in Bulawayo now, and it was a good journey from the ruins, an express bus. I went to the Waverley and couldn't find Dad, but was bought drinks by some nice guys, locals. One organised a girl for me, and vodka, wine, chicken I had to politely decline. I walked down to the trade fair and found Ray's car and waited 15 minutes till they arrived. Becky very drunk. The night was quiet. We had a few Waverley drinks, went home and watched a bit of TV. I went to bed about 9:30. Sunday was opened with a few beers, then we went to the races, my first time. It was quite pleasant being able to sit on the green lawn, sip a beer in the sun and watch the horses. I only bet once, but cost $6. Was tempted to bet on a horse, Jack's Pride. It won, but I never bet. Last night took Amina to see 9.5 Weeks. I liked the idea of the film, but it was censored badly. Lost a lot in it. I stopped at Francesca's for a few drinks afterwards. Today I rang Pauline Ross, that was my sister. Found out my ticket can't be booked, some problems. Oh well. I thought too easy, I need to think a little now, perhaps I can buy it in South Africa. Also, Mr. Ross Sr. died, expected but still a shame, a nice man. That was Roscoe's dad, my brother-in-law's dad. He was a nice guy, didn't realise it was that long ago he passed. Wow. 18th of May. In a week, a few changes and happenings to report. Took the bus back from Bulawayo on the Wednesday and went to a barbecue at the Bowls Club. Free bar and a band. I got up and sang Back in the USSR, Let It Be, heaven's door. I got very drunk. Rang Pauline again, all okay to go ahead, booked for the 30th of July. The cost was $1,680. Wow. I wonder if that's Zimbabwean dollars. Went up to the Vic Falls on Friday to look for fellow walkers. I went first to the game drive early morning, saw a wild dog and a few other interesting animals, nothing special though. Went on to the falls at the camping area. Left a few notes around but didn't find anyone, so left a little disillusioned. Saturday came and we went to the club at lunchtime. I was sitting outside and a young fella from Austria introduced himself, interested in the walk. He had lunch with us, said he'll be back Thursday, so I was glad for that. I expect Amina will be here today. What a funny group we'll make. Went to the movie Saturday night, saw Philadelphia Experiment. Corny. Yesterday I played bowls in the morning, a bit of a laugh. Yeah, so on that bushwalk you had a couple of guides that were assigned to you. They were armed. One was a white guy, one was an African, like a tracker. They both had rifles, FN rifles to protect you. Normally you can't walk in the game reserve, but you could sleep out. You didn't see as many animals as you might if you were in a car. But yeah, we had a few great encounters. It was just a fantastic experience. 25th of May, just sitting in Bumbuzi camp now after completing our walk of 4 days and 3 nights. We covered about 50 kilometres. I can't say game-wise it was a total success, but it was very good to see spoor, feeding habits and vegetation. On the first night we slept on a koppie right at dusk and we saw a black rhino, the silhouette. He got curious by our fire, so came up to investigate. Quite exciting. A few minutes there while he left, advancing and grunting. We hid behind trees and threw rocks at him till he left us. Wow about that. Next night we camped on the Decker River and heard lion at night. Apart from that, not a lot seen, but some nice bushwalking. Yeah, Amina did a sterling job, and although I don't think she enjoyed it all, she didn't complain too much. Got the letter from Diane last week. What a bomb. I'm not to write, ring, contact her again. A very blunt, end it all letter. We'll see. It hurt at first, now a little. It hurt at first, now a little. And look, there's some of Amina's writing here. Wow. She says, hello, this Amina. I hope I was not a pest through the walk. It was an adventure. Amazing. I didn't know she'd written in this book. No, she wasn't a pest at all. And actually, yeah, one time I took some library books out and I was, I think she spent a day or two at home and I was out doing something with Dad, or when I came back she'd read one of the library books. I mean, I don't know what sort of education Amina might have had, but the book was actually the story of that fella Charles Sabraj in India, serial killer. So she read the book because she was telling me she found him kind of sexy. Charles. Wow, I haven't seen that writing for so long. And yeah, you know, the letter from Diane telling me it's all over, blah blah blah. Well, it was never all over. It's still not all over. But at the time, I think I cried my eyes out. It was the end, you know. It was all the drama that you'd want. Anyway, we're now into June. Did the walk ever happen? It seems so long ago. Anyhow, we drove out of the park and saw some elephant, a glimpse of lion plus usual furry friends. I went out with Colin, the Welsh bricklayer, plus his girl on Friday night to the Baobab Disco. Very exciting. Yeah, I'm not sure I've written about this event. Something like, Colin lights a joint. Yeah, this is what happened. Hands it to me, and the next thing, 2 black cops walk over and arrest me. After a few words, they left us alone. So a lucky escape there. So I don't think I was arrested. So what happened was, yeah, we went out with Colin, this big Welsh guy, and his girlfriend, African girlfriend. We sat at the table and Colin lights this joint, and it happened to be in my hand when these two African guys were watching us, and they walked over and they said, "What's that?" And I dropped it on the ground. They picked it up, examined it, and said it's marijuana, and you know, you're breaking the law. And yeah, I was terrified. So Colin sort of distracted them and started saying, "Would you like a drink?" And I said to them, "Well, I believe that up there in, I think there's a place in Zimbabwe that one of the local tribes smoke a lot of pot." And I said, "You know, I believe that they smoke it up there." And the cops were saying, "Yeah, but you're not one of them." And I was telling them about Australia, and anyway, somehow we managed to talk our way out of it. Maybe we gave them some money, maybe we bought them drinks, but eventually they just changed topics and they left us alone. On Saturday night, went to see Legal Eagles, not a bad movie. I've written to the girl in Bulawayo for my pants to be made if she can do it. They're the suede pants, a complete waste of money. Big news is I'm to play at the cabaret here. That's the thing, yeah, with a band and solo. It means 4 nights practice a week. What else is there to do here? I played Lipstick and Leather to Tony last night. He's the organiser. All present were blown away. They like it. My idea is to put 2 dancers to join me, but we'll see about that. I'm also working on Waltzing Matilda. Not a lot else news-wise. Had letters from Jack, Whiskey, Pauline, Reynolds. Amina has gone back to Bulawayo, so I get my pleasure from books. I read the Hindley Brady Moores murders. How ghoulish. So yeah, mid-June, another 10 days flown by, and a lot of them have been with me planning the cabaret, although I've been having a few rages too. Practice with a band, it's good. I've decided to do solid rock, the Goanna song. And I rang Roscoe the other day to get the words. I think I can do it well. I couldn't. I've become very friendly with the Welsh brickies, Colin and Bob. I took them up the falls last Saturday, souvenir shopping. We all had very bad hangovers, but after lunch went to the Rainbow and started drinking in the sun. The day ended, oh well, I had dinner at the Coke oven with Colin.